Okay. Hmm. Well, we're supposed to be talking about, like, explaining employment at will and the exceptions.
Yeah. Can we just,
Uh, I honestly was like falling asleep while reading this, so um, I thought it was interesting that it was unique to the United States,
yeah.
um, especially compared to like other countries that kind of follow the same type of government as we do. But um, I guess they're. Oh, sorry. I guess they're. Oh, hi, Zach.
Hello.
Marnie, can you hear me? Marnie's been really struggling to, like, she can't hear us or we can't hear her, but she's supposed to be group leader.
Oh man.
So I've been just kind of looking through. So we just got started.
Okay.
We're just trying to go through, like, the explanation of employment at will and the exceptions of it. Um, a breach of implied contract is a contract between the employer and the employee that is created by the actions of the employer. The employer could imply that the employee will have continued employment by making statements about how well the employee is doing. The employer could also create an implied contact through, that's probably supposed to say contract, through an employment manual that details termination practices. For example, the three strikes policy that says they have to give you notice before firing. So that could be an exception. I wonder how many I wonder how many businesses do that if they know they don't have to give a reason, but they state that they do need to give you a reason.
Yeah, I know on my job there's no way you have to have reasons and documented and all those things, probably to avoid lawsuits, obviously.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the main reason is just lawsuits. Okay. And then breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. This could come into play where an employer unfairly tries to avoid doing what they agreed to do under the contract by terminating an employee. So it sounds like this is like the exceptions are all just kind of jumbled together and it's like breaking up in pieces. I don't know. I don't understand really what the difference is between those two. Covenant of and then violation of public policy, terminating an employee for refusing to commit an unlawful act, serving on jury duty, blowing the whistle, filing for workers' comp, refusing to date one's boss, etc. I wonder how often that actually happens where like you're required to do illegal things and you refuse to. My husband's company, there's actually been some illegal activity by one of the partners, and so they're actually working on suing him and getting him thrown behind bars actually right now. But
Hmm.
there's been some. people um, that he's asked to do jobs that were illegal, and they well, I think most of them refused. I think some of them did. I don't know how many actually caught on that it was legal or not, but there were people that realized that and they just refused to do it. But I'm just curious how often, because he could easily, like, he's in a position where he could fire people. So I'm just wondering how often that happens in, like, other companies.
And that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Um, the discrimination statutes, don't forget about the anti-discrimination statutes we covered previously. Like it talks about like race, national origin, gender, and religion. And then the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. Which I think those, like that, I feel like, yes, our country says that they can fire without a reason, but most people that would, I think, get fired without a reason in quotes can always probably throw that like back to one of those discrimination things if they weren't given an actual reason, which I think what you brought up about getting lawsuits, like I think employers just need to make sure that they have a good reason so they don't get thrown in those types of situations.
Yeah,
Even
I
if
was
it may
I
not
was
be
kind of
specific
surprised to see
discrimination.
how loose the law was. That you could in the United States fire anybody for not fire, but let somebody go for no reason or not have to give them anything. But yeah, I think companies are just so overly cautious because of the risk they run.
Yeah. I was just thinking about like the judge's position on this just because it is loose and so it's like it's a major judgment call on those types of situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then the next uh, section, it's wanting to figure out like what should the manager do. So what impact does Terry slash Bill have on the company's bottom line?
They're killing them. They're paying people to do nothing, which kills the bottom line.
Yeah, basically. I felt like I believe Phil's position. I don't feel like they really explained a whole lot about what he did or didn't do. They just said that he did provide some contribution, but not everything. But I just felt like his was a little vague on that. But both together, yeah, they both sound like they're just killing the company, and they weren't really hired in a manner that they would have, like they had potential to do better. Sounds like. Um, what obligations does the manager have to the company based on that information? According to the manager, Terry makes no contribution, so all of his salary and benefits are pure cost. In a company that is only making $300,000 in a year, Phil seems to be less of a financial liability. So,
Yeah, I
question
wonder how much these guys are making, because that's a lot of money that's just getting forked out for really almost no work being done. The read made it seem like.
Yeah, and he's bothering a bunch of employees while he's at it. He's not
Yeah,
only wasting his time, but he bothers everybody else.
Terry just seems like a bad egg.
yeah. Ugh.
They had the right connections.
Yeah, exactly. He just got in through connections. It didn't matter what his qualifications were.
What do you guys think about company policies against nepotism?
I think they're important.
You wouldn't allow nepotism if you owned a company.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen so many problems that come from it, and it's hard because it's like, well, how do you even enforce nepotism? If you let it go one time, then you have to let it go every time, and things like that. And it gets
Yeah.
hard to enforce. But I've just seen companies that have the policy and ignore it, and how many problems it creates.
Well, I have mixed feelings because, like, my husband works for a company where his dad is a partner that makes hiring decisions. He's not the only one, but he's been very careful about not getting involved in any, like, financial decisions or whatever regarding my husband. Like, he tries to stay out of those situations and let other management do that. And I like my husband, like, he's proven that he belongs there. Like, he's one of the most valued employees there. So I feel like that was an opportunity. Like, he was able to get a job, but then I think there's definitely some precautions when it comes to working under a relative, or like having a relative be an owner of the company. Like, there's definitely pros and cons to it, and I think a lot of times it can be a bad mistake, and other times it works out great. So
I think it'd be way hard if you owned a company not to hire your family or your son, daughter, whatever. But I'm with you, Michael. I've seen some bad situations too. I know my mom has a lot of complaints at her work, and most of it is about nepotism. So
Yeah, I don't know. Like I worked somewhere where we had a person in a supervisory role that their fiance worked in another role in the same place, and um, the girl in the supervisory role, she had openly said that if um, her fiance left the company or anything like that, that she would leave,
mm,
and she was really valuable in her position, and so then the manager in charge of everything just let it slide because they needed the girl in the supervisory role, and so the guy could just get away with doing whatever he wanted and nothing ever happened. And so I've just seen so many situations like that where it can be a bad problem, like Terry's situation where she's wanting to put a 2.5 on the review, right? And then VPs come up to her and they're like, "Hey, do you even know what you're doing? Are you sure you want to give this guy a 2.5?" And it's like, "Yes, I'm sure."
yeah,
Um, and so she's getting a lot of pressure to not do that, but she really deserves it, you know?
yeah, this situation, it's definitely was a bad choice, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, no qualifications or anything. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, connection, totally. Um, and based on what we've learned about employment at will and exceptions, what legal obligations could the manager have to Terry and Phil?
I didn't think there was really any, right? That was one.
I think there's a couple things that are make it a little bit tricky. So one of the things that we talked about, right, was the where was it? Oh, the breach of an implied contract, right? So who was it? Phil. So they had the company policy, right, where if you didn't get promoted after 3 years, that you were supposed to get fired. And Phil had been with the company for 6 years, had never received a promotion, but had never been fired. So the implied contract basically was breached at that point. Does that make sense? So now that policy is null and void with Phil because they didn't do anything at the 3 year mark. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So it's a couple things like that that make it difficult. So with Terry, for example, as well, he'd always been given threes. He'd always been given fours. His performance hadn't changed at all, but all of a sudden he's going to get a 2.5. So I think, where did it say it? Um, Gosh, sorry guys. Oh, basically somebody came to him and they're like, "Oh, um, he's been performing at like threes and 3.5, so why is he all of a sudden getting a 2.5? He doesn't deserve that or something like that." Anyway, um, and so by saying that his performance was okay for so long, they're basically saying that now it's hard to say that it's not okay. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. And on here it also brings up um, possibility of implied contract for Terry. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to remember where that would bring it up, and also age discrimination for Terry, and then possibility of discrimin or ugh, I don't really have it to say. Possibility of disability discrimination for Phil.
Yeah.
Um, for Terry, oh yeah, like the third paragraph to the bottom. Um, I felt like it was kind of he was just saying he knew Terry kept a gun in his car because he had some other people who would target shoot on weekends after, and you do hear these stories of employees going crazy. Also, he was 15 years older than me. I know this isn't necessarily politically correct, but he was also short and balding with a terrible comb over. I think he was hardcore religious, and people said he had trouble finding a girlfriend. So even
Probably
like,
more.
yeah, religion, discrimination could be thrown in there. I just didn't, yeah, that I just didn't like that whole paragraph. Like it just seemed like he was really focusing on the things that were necessary for how he was performing.
Yeah, that was strange.
She kind of set herself up for a hard situation because throughout it, it talks about how she always talks about how she hired younger people and a specific type of people, people like her, and it's like, okay, you should probably stop talking about that because that's going to get you into trouble.
Yeah, really. So, well, with Phil, the disability discrimination, I felt like they were thinking about the like all of a sudden like all this disability stuff comes up, but then he comes back with no problems. But I could see how that could turn into a lawsuit just based off of like previous, like when we were going through and had to figure out who was going to win the discrimination lawsuit or whatever. Like I feel like that's kind of a similar thing where they like come back and then like you could be sued for firing them after that type of thing, but it wasn't necessarily based off of disability. Okay, what ethical obligations does a manager have to Terry and Phil? This one's kind of interesting. Yeah, like here it says like Terry could be dangerous. I think they're bringing up maybe like the gun thing, like he has a gun and go crazy. um, top management wants to retain has been given high scores in the past, so like you've brought that up, where like all of a sudden you're going to give him 2.5 even though the level of performance really hasn't changed. Oh, sorry. And like, is it ethical to terminate out of the blue? I just say, oh, by the way, you're gonna be fired.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I agree that he needs to go, but maybe it would be better to kind of ease into it a little bit rather than such a blunt change, you know.
Yeah, maybe do some warnings or something.
I agree. I think the best course of action there would probably to give both of them a 2.5, which would put them both on a PIP, right? And then from there, if they do actually progress, then let them stay. But if not, then start them on that path.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the PIP was a very promising course of action either.
Yeah.
But
For development, I guess, but for getting them out the door, I guess it is, and it kind of gives them a time frame and lets them set the clear expectations. I don't know.
yeah, I guess that's true. And for Phil, it brings up that he thinks he should get a promotion, and his group has been rallying around him during his illness. How would terminating him impact morale of the rest of the employees?
Hey guys, I could jump in here.
Oh,
So,
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry about that.
You're good.
So, as far as Phil goes, I think at a minimum what they should do is, they're probably just going to have to give him some more time. Like at least another review is going to have to go by, if not maybe two. And maybe really the same thing could be done with Terry because they were completely dishonest basically in all the previous reviews because they wanted to keep him. They basically lied on the reviews. So maybe if with both of them they just gave it more time and were completely honest on their evaluations, then if they felt like termination was necessary, it would be documented and hopefully it wouldn't look like it was for any other reason.
I think that would be safe for the company because if there ended up being like a lawsuit of any kind, then they're like, oh, well, we need evidence. They're like, oh, you've given this person like all high scores, and all of a sudden you just decide to fire them. So I think it'd be safe for everybody, and it would be a more ethical way of approaching the situation, I think.
Yeah, me too. Because there's got to always be that documentation in place, right? And there's no way for her to prove that everyone else lied on their evaluations. That's probably got to be extra hard though when somebody comes back from a really bad illness like that, especially if everyone knew that they were headed towards dismissal or being fired and everybody, gave their sick leave and all that. You would just have to, let some time go by before you could do anything.
Definitely be some major issues if he came back and all of a sudden like, oh, well, you're leaving now, so.
Yeah, because then, he said the article said he was, more or less back to normal, but back to normal in that he wasn't doing his job and nothing really had changed. And so the reviews, down the road could reflect that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you want me to keep going, Marnie, or did you want to pick up?
I'm sorry, I can go ahead and pick up. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, so we're supposed to analyze the company's HR practices. Generally speaking, how well is this company doing with its HR practice or HR practices? It doesn't really talk about HR. It just talks about her as
Failed.
right?
I think it's really messy, personally. So like, just a lot of the things. There's a lot of inconsistencies. The reviews don't seem like they're managed very well. The PIP system seems like it's not managed very well. The fact that they had a policy that if you weren't promoted within 3 years that you got fired, but Phil's been there for 6. It's like they've just got all these policies in place but don't follow any of them. The guy got hired after every person said no to him in the interviews, and it's like, okay, so basically you have an HR department that you don't listen to and don't care about, so it's not even really an HR department.
Yeah, so they're really not functioning, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say just from the reading.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so you just covered, I mean, so maybe these things that they talk about in the article are things that they do or practices that have been carried over from Microsoft or these other previous employers, but maybe part of the problem, and I'm sure we'll find out here, is it's not in writing anywhere. So maybe that's why no one's adhering to any of the so-called rules.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just seems like a really sloppy company in general. There's just been just like this company that's been slapped together with a whole bunch of different things, and they're like, okay, here we go. Here's Microsoft plus 20 other companies.
Yeah, crazy. So it's like, oh, we'll do a little of this and a little of that, and yeah, it
Stick
looks
some
like it's
glue here and some glue there and call it good.
causing problems. Um, so in the article, what is the PIP for? I thought it was really lame. I think you guys kind of talked about this as I was coming into it.
It's basically like a setup to be fired.
Right.
Like,
It's like,
we're gonna have this warning, and then you're gonna be fired. Like, it doesn't really matter what you do, because it's one, and then you're out of there.
Isn't that the case a lot, though, in companies where if somebody sits down with you and says, all right, so your performance is not where it's supposed to be. These are the things we need to do to get you to where you are performing well. That's like the first conversation toward, okay, now you're fired, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's the case in a lot of companies.
you're
I-
probably right. I mean, I haven't had experience with that, but I'm guessing
That's
that's
because you
true.
do such a good job.
Well, no. It's because I work for such small companies, but you know, I mean, a real one, I mean, right? Shouldn't the HR department and all the managers and supervisors, I mean, wow, if they're not advocating for their employees, then they're being really selfish and they're wasting a lot of money for the company. Because it's expensive to just overlook all those hiring practices and interviews and have a PIP for the purpose of firing. I don't know. To me, it's just flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah.
Do you think this manager can make good decisions about these two individuals, or does she seem to be influenced by biases that will be hard to overcome?
I think I think she's more towards making good decisions. I mean, she's not letting the influence of the other people that want to keep the two. Like, she's like, this is what he should deserve, and so this is what it's like she's gonna give him. It seems like.
Yeah,
But
it's like she seems to have already made up her mind before the decision's been made. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess my opinion would be is she's probably the first one that really got it right. It seemed like these guys have been slacking and just kind of riding the wave because of their friends, or at least one of them was. And she is being pretty harsh compared to what she has, so that's why I think it's a good idea maybe to kind of ease into firing them rather than going right at it. But I don't think she's being unreasonable in her decisions or opinions.
Yeah, the only thing that seems unreasonable to me is what Amanda was explaining about some of her opinions seem to be kind of personal in nature and not just performance or, you know, work related issues.
Yeah, I agree with that. Some of her opinions are definitely unfounded, but um, the bulk of it, the real performance problems that these guys are having are real, and
Yeah.
they have been, like Zach said, sliding under the radar for a while. And something does need to happen with them, but she does need to base it only on those things, not her other personal opinions of these guys.
I agree. Okay, so we're supposed to make a decision, each one of us, about what the manager should do with regards to Phil and Terry. So you have to make a decision. um, let's see. So what would you do? Let's do Phil first. Fire or keep him?
Bill was the friend of the big shots, right?
That was Terry.
That
Oh,
was
Terry.
great.
Rosemary.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm kind of sitting on the fence with because he seems like he can do a decent job. On there, they talked about maybe providing, like, taking some things from other people to give to him to give more of a contribution job.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like maybe doing that and giving him a chance maybe to do that and see what he does, and if he doesn't progress at all, then maybe give him some warnings and then end up firing him. But he seems like he could do okay there if he was given a little bit more maybe. I don't know. He was a kind of a hard one for me to kind of grasp how he was entirely.
Yeah, I thought he deserved. Obviously his performance in the spot that he's in isn't up to par, but I thought he deserved a chance just because it seemed like he was kind of in the wrong spot. It said that he was acquired from a different company, right, when they bought him, and he served as a good liaison, I think is what it said, for those products, and helped a lot of people understand it that way. So maybe if they could restructure his assignment and kind of give him a new role, I think he could maybe stick it out and maybe fit him better that way.
I like that idea.
I think if I were her, I'd probably give him a 3 on his review and say, all right, so I'm giving you a 3, but I'm really on the fence about this, and set the clear expectations with him about what he needs to do to stay at a 3, or else he's going to be getting moved down to a 2.5. Does that make sense? So that he has an understanding of what's happening. It's not just like, oh, blindsided 2.5, now you're on your way out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree with all of you. I mean, my opinion would be to restructure Phil. I mean, make it all very clear what's going on. Praise him for the things he is doing good, like you said, Zach, because he was, fitting that slot of the diversity and kind of bringing some of the other team members together, and definitely at this point not firing him, and yeah, I think I would give him a 3 too, Michael, like you said. Okay, so we're all in agreement on Phil. What about Terry?
He's gone, in my opinion. Get him out of there. It'd be tough though to be in her situation just because your bosses are his friend. I mean, that's a tough situation to be in, but I don't know. In the end, if you did the right thing and helped the bosses see the wrong that was going on for a while, and I think it's smart, like we talked about, to ease into it, right? Not just swiftly fire him, but maybe help the bosses see your side. I know a lot of good leaders, at least, would appreciate somebody that's not afraid to have a different opinion and offer that up, and just not be a yes man or woman here all the time.
And if they are going to criticize her for it, then it's like, oh, does she really want to be
Yeah,
there? No.
Yeah.
just for the sake of the company, like we were talking about, like just giving a little more time, but I agree he should be gone, but just more gradually getting to that point so they have documentation of it and so they don't get in trouble, even though it is their fault for creating that situation. For the company as a whole, I think it'd be better for them if they eased into it a little bit.
And
But
Michael,
he definitely doesn't qualify her.
So my thought about Terry is that I think I would want to sit down with my boss, who is the VP in this situation, and say, "Hey, look, Terry's going to get a 2.5 on his review. If he's still doing what he's doing, that's where his performance is at, and he's just not performing in his role." But it does say that Terry was really good at translating things, at being a scribe, or basically anything like that. So maybe talk to this VP about the option of maybe making Terry some sort of secretary or something, that like another option of a role that would fit his abilities a little bit better. And just say, look, he's going to get a 2.5 on my team unless we can find something else for him.
Yeah, because that way she's being completely honest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with all of you on that. Okay, so we're supposed to read the rest of the story. We didn't have to do this last week, but supposedly we have to put in a password this week. So under dismissing employees part 2, if you haven't already seen it, the password is, sorry, just lost it. It is all caps, TT, C like cat, B like boy. And I think we're just supposed to probably read through it quickly, kind of like last week. Let's see what it says. Everyone quickly read through to review the outcome, and then we'll talk about a couple, 3 questions, and then we're done.
Yeah.
What was the password again? I typed in what I wrote down and it didn't work.
Capital TTCB.
Oh, B is in boy?
Yeah, so Tom,
Okay.
cat, boy.
Okay, thank you.
That's a really sad ending. Jeez. Okay, I'll just holler when you guys are done.
Okay.
Wow.
Huh. I'm done.
I'm done.
Okay. So these are some interesting questions because it's not what you think it's going to ask. So what did she do well?
She kept it positive.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I loved her solution to Terry. I mean, just kind of laid it out there for him. Some of the things she said I would feel uncomfortable saying, but
I agree. I agree completely. I'm like, really? You said that?
Seems
Uh,
I
like
think
he's
the end
not afraid
result
to
was
say
good, right?
anything.
Terry kind of took care of himself, and it's just like, hey, I want as a friend, I want you to look better than having to go clean your desk out in front of everybody.
yeah, and she knew what the PIP ultimately represented, right? And so, although I kind of, with the staying positive thing, I mean, she gave him the opportunity to try and find another job. Um, but I don't know if I were that person, if I were Terry, probably the more I thought about it, I probably wouldn't even try. I'd be like, this just isn't the right fit for me, even if I could find another position. I don't know. What do you think, Michael?
I love how she said, how she was like, look, you know the people that are hiring, do you honestly think that you can compete with them? Do you want that for the rest of your career? Do you want to be viewed as the guy that can't do anything? Like, I don't know. I just really liked how she worded it.
Well, good for you. I'm surprised she was that brave, I guess. I,
But I,
I,
I think that's what it took. It seems like Terry was the kind of guy from the reading that could take that kind of conversation.
yeah, it's
He
true.
seemed rough around the edges. He seemed like he could handle that kind of conversation. I think she handled it really well with him as a person.
Yeah, I agree. Even though I might not have said it exactly the way she did.
For sure. I
Overall,
don't know if I'm that gutsy.
yeah. Um, okay, so those things being positive, all those things were obviously very effective. So what was it that she did that was not effective, in your opinions? Or was there anything?
The only thing I think she did a great job. The only thing I probably wouldn't have said, where is it? You guys go ahead. I'll pick out the phrase here.
Are we specific on Terry or are we doing just in general?
Just in general, between the two of them, was there something she did that was not effective?
With Phil, it seemed like she was just gonna let him ride it out. Um, I don't know. I feel like she should have been set a little bit more clear of expectations with him. I know he was sick and everything, but just setting some expectations, setting some standards for him to help him to perform better. Where the way that it was, it just kind of is like, okay, just do what you're doing and you're fine.
Yeah, she was more lax with him than she was with Terry, it seems like. So maybe I don't know. She just didn't seem as personable and as honest with Phil as she was with Terry. So I guess I would consider that to be ineffective.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was picking up as she was just like, oh yeah, I'll just kind of let him do his thing, and she just didn't seem to care as much about what happened to him. It seemed like I guess could be looked at as a good or a bad thing, but
Yeah, it does definitely come across that way. Whether or not it's intended, I don't know. Uh, Maybe she was feeling a little more complacent because he had been sick.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, so what can we learn from this case about making decisions about termination? Or what could you apply in a future situation?
I think you can make anything positive, which I've been learning in I'm taking an advanced writing in pro context, and we've been like learning how to write like negative emotion letters in a positive way. Like I think there's always a way to make it so you're not pointing fingers and making things worse than what they're already going to be just due to the actual facts and the content. But then again, like I think you need to keep your options open too, because I don't think I would have really thought like how she handled Terry. I think was great, and I don't think I would have thought of all those different things that she brought up to him. So I think keeping an open mind can help with that, and there's always multiple options or solutions to a problem, I guess.
Right, that
What?
kind of reminds me of the reading that we did about layoffs, where I guess I wasn't familiar with furloughs enough to understand that, there always is lots of other options besides just firing somebody. And I hadn't really thought about that. Of course, I didn't realize the numbers were what they were as far as. So, yeah, I agree. I like that. Just keeping positive options open. Yeah, what do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I remember my boss told me once that in these situations it's always best if you can help the employee come to the conclusion themselves rather than having to say, go clean out your desk. If they can go figure that out on their own and clean it out themselves, whether that's stepping down, going to a different job in the company, or going to a different, looking for a job outside, I think that's a lot better than having to tell somebody that they're fired.
I like that. And probably something else I learned too is just how important it is to have all that documentation in place. What's his name was a good example of that because, or Phil, I mean, who would have ever guessed that he would get sick and end up in the hospital right before they were getting ready to let him go? Had that documentation been in
Yeah.
place, you know, actually he probably wouldn't have come back. Because he would have known, right, that he was going to get let go, and why would you go back if you knew? I don't know. Documentation. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah, I
taking
think
a communications class right now, and one of the books that we had to read for the class was Leadership and Self-Deception. And it talks about viewing other people as people, and I think that's the key thing that she did right in the situation, right, where she looked at Terry as a person and said, "Hey, Terry, this is. Let me be real with you. This is how it really is from one person to another. Let's make this a good thing, not a bad thing, and make it'll make us all happier." And so, viewing another person as a human being and treating them as you would like to be treated, I think changes the situation a lot, and that means turning it positive in every situation, trying to make it work out better for everyone in every situation.
Yeah, and making sure it's sincere, right? Because I know some people try
Exactly.
to be fake in that regard. And to me, I think you can tell when it's like, yeah, you're just trying to, see it from my perspective, but I guess it would depend on this person and the situation.
Sure.
Okay, guys, thank you. So we have another paper due this week,
and
Yay.
right?
yeah, it's supposed to
Sure.
be half the content. So he said either do 2 problems with the 4 solutions or do four problems with 2 solutions.
Oh, I did not see that. Okay.
Well, he said it in the discussion, the
Last week,
hangout, weekly hangout. Yeah.
was there one for this week?
I don't probably, but I haven't watched it.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think it's that one.
So you're thinking of the one from last week?
Yeah, last Wednesday.
Okay. Well, I obviously missed that part. I thought he was referring only to the very last one. That's what I heard.
Oh, maybe
So,
that's it. Maybe it was the last one.
oh, but I could be wrong. So,
Well, I could be
um,
too. That makes more sense if it was the last one. So I was thinking this was possibly the last
well,
one too. So
but see, we only have three to do. We have organized labor, and then layoff. Well, this is kind of the same thing. How do you separate layoffs and dismissing employees? Isn't it the same thing more or less?
yeah, you could. The dismissing employees could maybe focus more on,
Formality.
yeah, and layoffs could maybe be on like pros and cons of laying off compared to um whatever. I forgot what that other the first paper was talking about. Whatever furloughs. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but maybe we'll have to go through that discussion again and pick up what he said. I just remember he said something about half a paper, so I don't know if it was this week or if it was the last one. I don't remember, but
Okay, well, what if I go back? What if I go back and pay attention to that? He'll probably address it in tomorrow night's group meeting too.
yeah, probably.
But is that too late for you guys to write something up and
That should be fine.
No, that's
Yeah, that
fine.
okay.
And you just kind of divvy out assignments, Marnie? Is that what you're thinking?
Say that again?
After that, tomorrow you would just kind of divvy out assignments. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, that's good
Works
with
for
me.
me.
Okay. So we'll do that and then I'll confirm on both sides and post something on our group page. And then I'll be in charge of putting it together. And I'm thinking probably for the final one, maybe we can all, because otherwise it would be back to Brent again, and I kind of hate to leave the final in his hands. So, I mean, it's not a final, it's an accumulation, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, if that's the plan, I will do that and I will post and you guys can get back to me with any questions. Oh, Amanda, would you mind doing starting the Google Doc?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is that asking too much?
No, it's easy, so I have no problem doing that.
Okay, that'd be great. Then everybody can post there once we decide on who wants to do what and how many we need to do. So, okay, you guys, I'm really sorry. Amanda, thanks for covering for me.
No problem.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Okay,
Thanks.
we'll talk soon. Thanks.